Brian's been working on the Steinway. So remember I was questioning whether or not you really had to dowel the pin block to the stretcher into the inner room.
Mm-hmm.
So what he was finding was it sounds like it is, well, okay. Paul Ray last week, was that last week?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it or not, it was.
Crazy. He said that it's part of the tone. I'm not sure I told him that I'm skeptical that that's true. And he's like, well, that's what they say. That sound, see, this is what just sounds crazy to me. It just sounds like a bunch of I don't know, people making crazy claims. He claims that sound travels through the plate into the pin block, and that I know, and that because the pin block in Steinway's is doweled to the stretcher and doweled to the inner rim, that it kind of, like, the whole piano vibrates, as opposed to just the soundboard.
It'd be really interesting to know how much.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it does a little bit, but I don't know.
Sure. I mean, but it also travels through the floor and through the walls, and I mean, like, sound is everywhere, right? And it permeates everything, and vibrations make other things vibrate. But, like, yeah, that's the question, is how much does it really affect it? So I told him that I was skeptical that that's really true. I'm not skeptical that that's what they claim, that that's what Steinway claims. I have no doubt about that. But I'm skeptical that it really makes a difference. And I was planning on totally ignoring the advice and just rebuilding this this Steinway like the High Loon is, which is to say that it makes more sense to me that the pin block is totally up against the flange of the plate. Like, that makes a lot more sense to me, because I can think through that, and it makes structural sense that if the pin block is 100% or as close to 100% fitted to the plate as possible, that the tuning stability would be higher. And if the pin block were fitted to the piano, to the inner rim and to the stretcher, and then you try and lower the plate onto that there would be kind of some compromise between, is the pin block fitted to the piano or is the pin block fitted to the plate? And you can't have one, you kind of have to choose. So, but what Brian found, and maybe this is the real reason, the tone argument sounds to me, and again, if anyone is watching this, I don't know if anyone is, or anyone watches
Curtis
this later.
is watching.
Curtis, cool. Okay.
First one on today.
Great. Or if anyone is watching this later, please message me. I would really like to know if you have any insight on this. So what happened when he put it in, and then he tightened down the bolts in the front, or in the tail of the piano, that it sort of started to pull the back of it up slightly.
Interesting.
He said it was about 1/4 inch, so not very much, but it pulled it up slightly. So since the pin block was fastened to the bottom of the under here, bottom of the plate, the pin block was then no longer resting on the inner rim. So it pulled, kind of teeter-tottered everything up. So that makes more sense to me. Okay, now that I can get behind. I can see, okay, there's like a structural, there's kind of there's an argument for that. So the compromise that we came up with, because because we had already cut the pin block a little bit short by, what is this, 1/8 of an inch short of the stretcher. The fit here on the sides is perfect, but from the stretcher is about 1/8 of an inch shy. So what we did, or what Brian and I talked about and what Brian actually executed, is we had the piano in place exactly where we wanted it. We didn't have the bolts tightened down. Maybe he had a few tightened down, but not to the point where it was pulling the pin block up. And all of the screws into the pin block, from the plate into the pin block, were tight. Checked the down bearing, got the down bearing exactly where we wanted it, found the exact spot where we wanted the pin block. So that, again, this is with the plate still in. Then he went through and drilled holes through the stretcher, these 5 holes, or 5. So we got the pin block exactly where he wanted it. Well, but first he put this little shim in. He got some pin block material, and he slid the shim up under and sanded that down, found the exact dimension of how thick the shim should be. Slid that under just to take up that 1/8 of an inch of space. And you can see it here. That's what this is. And then he put the dowels in. Then once the dowels are in, now the pin block is in the correct spot. Then he took off all the screws to release the plate from the pin block, and whatever screws he had holding the plate down, took those off. Then he took the plate out. Then he doweled the pin block to the inner rim. So here we are. We're back to the original Steinway design, which is to dowel the pin block to the stretcher in the inner rim.
Curtis said that people make the same type of claims with the trombone too,
Oh, interesting.
and come up with gizmos to connect different parts so that it vibrates better. He hasn't tried any of them personally, so
Okay.
interesting.
So are there components on the trombone that are really intended for tone, and others that are really intended for structure? I wonder. I would assume so. I would assume that, you know, some components have to be there for practical purposes, and others are more for the bell of the trombone maybe is
for sure.
is maybe comparable to the soundboard of the piano. It just seems kind of new agey, witchcraft, doTERRA to claim that the structural components of the piano are used for tone, in the same way that I'm wondering, and maybe.
Jim, let us know your thoughts if you have any on that too.
Oh yeah,
He
Jim
just
is on.
joined, yeah.
Okay, Jim, your input would be great on this.
I don't know if he heard the first part.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay, quick summary. This is just for Jim, so that we can get Jim's input. The question is doweling the pin block to the stretcher and the inner rim, does that really make a difference in the tone of the piano? Because my feeling is it's strictly structural to do that, and whoever came up with that idea was just doing that to kind of tie everything together and make it structurally like super solid, but the tone comes from the soundboard, right? Like, how is that not obvious? I don't know. It sounds to me like Mr. Steinway in 1850s or whatever, who came up with the design, was like, yeah, I'm gonna do this to make it structurally solid, and then a generation or two later, marketers that were trying to sell the piano were like, oh yeah, this is done because this is part of our secret sauce that makes Steinway's sound so good. You know,
Sounds like marketing.
yeah, that is marketing. You know, making that claim after the fact, if you actually talk to the original designer, they would say, no, this was just structural. Anyway,
You just
love
need to build an anechoic chamber and get a bunch of microphones and do some testing.
and get 2 identical Steinways, rebuild one that is doweled and one that is where the pin block is free floating. Yeah. And rebuild them to the exact same specifications in every other way. Anyway, so what he ended up doing, the reason this is all kind of slathered in glue, that's actually epoxy. He taped it up down here, sealed it with, feels like several layers of tape to fill that crack, and then he mixed up a whole bunch of epoxy and just poured it in there. So now not only is the pin block doweled through this little shim, but it's also the shim and the stretcher and the pin block are slathered in epoxy as well.
All right, got a comment from
Okay.
Curtis first.
Curtis? Okay, Curtis says, I have tried a trombone with a little weight you could screw in. It was just this little weight, but depending on which one you screwed, it changed the feel completely. It did change the tone. Okay. All right, good. Okay, doweling it, Jim Busby says, doweling it does make a difference. We did 2 and the sound projects better. Okay, so Jim apparently did.
Wow. Now we
did
don't
that
have to make our
test.
chamber.
Okay, because we definitively now know that this is not witchcraft voodoo.
doTERRA.
doTERRA/doTERRA. That now we have our answer. I'm still skeptical. Sorry, Jim, but how many other factors are there that could make it sound better, and to necessarily pin the reason to the doweling? I don't know, maybe it's the doweling, but there are other factors. I think I'd want to hear it myself. Anyway, okay. So that's our Steinway. Let's go look at the Henry F. Miller. We'll talk about.
Jim says you need to do a few and then you won't be skeptical.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, we did one, so
We have a few right now.
yeah. We have what, 4 that were 4 Steinways
like
we're
that.
rebuilding.
So Jim, tell me about the one that you did not dowel. You did just uptight, screwed to the plate, and totally fitted. I don't know about that. Gorgeous, I think, and rebuilt very well. Well, rebuilt kind of halfway. The strings are original, but the dampers, the hammers, the shanks, the hammer butts are original, but they've all been repinned. Of course, new keys and bushings and sharps. The trap works all. Or doing this level of rebuilding. Usually when we're done, we're just nothing but very, very pleased. And on this one, that just wasn't the case. This piano is just kind of weak. It just doesn't have the same power. Like the wing, you remember the wing that was here last week? 1905. That one just had like this massive presence, this massive projection and power, and this one really does not. So it just kind of, it sounds good, and I wouldn't feel. I think for the right person, even if this what I want to try doesn't work out, I think it's still a good piano. It still sounds nice. It's still a dramatic improvement from a piano normally that is 107 years old, and the refinishing job I think is really good too. What'd you find, Jake?
It's your battery. Your alternator's fine.
Okay.
Your battery's not holding a charge.
It's just not holding a charge. Okay. All right.
So it drops down to about 7 volts. So it's really, it doesn't have enough power to
Okay.
crank out. And you can see it on the multimeter just dropping.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
Don't we have a spare battery?
I think we do.
We could just swap it out right now.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sounds good. I can do that.
I think it's in the kitchen, Brigham said. Brigham, you want to go help him find it? So, the theory is that maybe. So of course we're not gonna replace the soundboard. That's probably the issue. I'm guessing that the soundboard has lost its crown, and the down bearing is probably weak. So, do you know if we have that rocker gauge for testing down bearing?
I asked you that the other day.
I don't know where it is.
I could look for it.
We could always just find a straight piece of pinblock material and then cut.
Jake might have it. Jacob Putnam.
Okay.
I haven't asked him.
Yeah. All right. That would help us to determine if there's an issue. So so kind of the rule of thumb. I can't remember where I learned it. It might have been Vince. Probably it was probably Vince. This was probably close to 15 years ago that I first kind of got my ideas about how much down bearing. So almost. So you never want negative down bearing. McKinley, you know what down bearing is? Let's come over here and look at this. Because down bearing is an important
Trying to skip
lateral,
Me too.
I guess, principle to understand. Especially when rebuilding like we're doing on the Steinways. At that point it's crucial to have down bearing. Where on a piano like this that's brand new, you don't really need to understand it. Understanding regulation and tuning is more crucial on this. The down bearing, they've taken care of that in the factory, and if there's a down bearing issue, then it's a warranty problem. They have to swap it out. But okay, so what it is, the soundboard is kind of shaped slightly. It's slightly convex, kind of a dome sort of shape, and the strings, while they look like they're totally parallel to the soundboard, they actually come up to the bridge, and then they go down to, well, these little aliquot things. These little.
It's like a fault block mountain range in the Sierra Nevada.
Where it's kind of pushing up and sort of like if you think of a
One side is
Blanket.
tilted.
Concave.
Real gradual rise.
isn't concave like it's a cave, like going in like a cave?
That's what Jim says.
Okay. Maybe if you're underneath, it's concave. Right? Because it's going in like a cave. Anyway.
Bulging up.
It's bulging up, thank you. So, really good.
Well, no, it says convex, so
Okay.
it depends on what.
Depending on which side.
Depends on what side
Yeah.
you're thinking. Yeah.
Right. So I saw a really good demonstration. It was a piece of soundboard material about this big, just a little rectangle of this type of spruce that had a tuning fork glued to the center and two handles on the side. And if you hit the tuning fork with a little hammer, a little mallet, the tuning fork would vibrate and vibrate through the little piece of spruce, and you could hear it. You could hear that it was louder than a normal tuning fork.
You still have that?
I've never had this. I think it'd be cool to make one so that I could demonstrate this.
Or maybe it was BYU that saw it.
Oh, BYU has one?
I remember a little contraption. It was either here or somewhere else.
Okay. Well, I'd like to get a hold of one because I've described it a lot. It really demonstrates what this concave/convex thing does. So anyway, it has two little handles on the side, and as the tuning fork is ringing, as you grab this little rectangle of soundboard material by the handles, and you kind of push in, making it bow up, suddenly that sound really comes alive of the tuning fork. So the tuning fork's transferring the sound through into the soundboard, and it really comes alive. But as you push it further, like you push it too hard, then it chokes out the sound. It's too much. And I'm not sure exactly what's going on. The fibers of the wood or something. This is the doTERRA voodoo witchcraft stuff that I believe in. Pseudoscience. I guess this probably isn't pseudoscience. This is real. So anyway, for whatever reason, it causes the sound to resonate much more. And there is that sweet spot, like I said, when it's under no tension or compression, depending on if you're talking about the bottom or the top. The bottom would be under, the bottom would be under compression, and the top of the soundboard would be under compression. And so,
It's like sitting on one of those big exercise balls. That springiness that pushes you back up.
yeah, I
It
guess so.
just absorbs that energy and transfers it.
Making the vibration, but it's interesting because that sound really just comes alive, and it's obvious, and it's undeniable. It's there's definitely a sweet spot, and as you kind of fiddle with it, as the tuning fork continues to ring, you can kind of, there it is. Oh, push too hard. Oh, too weak. No, and you can find that right spot. So it's a really interesting thing. So that's what you have on the soundboard. I wish there was a way to. I don't really know what the manufacturing process is. I think it'd be cool to learn that, to watch how they do it, to find out if they do somehow change it. I don't know.
I asked Brian, and he said that he saw one way was when you're drying and curing the soundboard spruce. Has a certain humidity to it, and temperature, and then they install the frame, and then as it acclimates, it expands and starts to bow up. I don't think that's the only way though.
So there's two ways to do it. One is to dry that soundboard down really, really, really dry, down to what was it, like 6 or 7% or something like that. Put it in a hot box. Cover that hot box with blankets, and put in light bulbs, like incandescent light bulbs or other heat sources. Get the humidity way down. I actually did this in my house a long time ago, and I put thermometers in there, and it got up to like 170, 180 degrees in there, and I was really worried. I put like smoke alarms all around the room, like, okay, am I gonna because you do this overnight. I was wondering, okay, is there gonna be like this inferno in my living room? I did it in my living room because that's the space that I had to work in. So you dry it way down, and then when it's dry, you lay it on the piano, and then with a pencil underneath, because of course there's no soundboard there, so you can reach under there. You draw your outline, and then you can cut it out so you have the exact shape of what you want. Cut it out with a jigsaw, put it back in the hot box, to dry back down, because the time that it, or the theory is anyway, the time that it takes to take it out and kind of fit it and do your pencil line and cut it out and everything, the time that takes, it's taking on humidity, and so you want to have maximum shrinkage from humidity loss when you put it in. So the method that Joe's talking about, then you put it back in when it's at maximum or minimum, I guess, minimum humidity. Put it back in, and then because it's glued in, and the rim essentially prevents it from expanding outwards, so the only way that it has to go is to bow up in the center. And then for the rest of its life, it has a higher humidity content, which forces it to bow up. The other way to do it is to actually cut your ribs to a, I think it's depending on the ribs, it's anywhere from a 20-foot to a 60-foot radius. So the rib is, only this long, and a radius. It's very slight, but it's a. I mean, you can literally get I remember doing this, actually measuring out a string 60 feet long, and using that as my compass to draw a line on the rib, and then glue the soundboard to that, which also gives it that compression tension thing. But my question is there any way, in the same way that this is another cool thing that I'd love. I have no idea how you do it, because you'd have to have a string on there. There's any way, in the same way like in that demonstration, where you can kind of play with the tension and hear the sound come alive, and then, oh, that's too much, that's choked. That would be really cool if there was some way to do that on a piano. I have no idea how you do that. Okay, anyway, so because of that compression tension, concave, convex soundboard, you have transfer of sound from the string to the bridge, and then the bridge into the soundboard. So what happens on old pianos like this is you can have that soundboard kind of flatten out, and you lose your crown, which is that convex shape, and then you lose your downbearing, and so the string it no longer transfers. And what we see pretty often, right, Scott, is we see downbearing issues where, I think the Kurtzman had this, where there are often, it's more obvious when there's a bridge issue, like a structural bridge issue, that the string is not transferring the tone into the soundboard, and so we recap the bridge or fix the bridge cap, and then suddenly that tone comes alive. So I'm thinking on this one, what we'll do. What's that?
I worked on this one, so I take this very personally.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you're here. So I want to measure the downbearing, and then
To move it then.
We could make a downbearing gauge out of spare.
pinblock material. Yeah. All right. Let's start by, let's take it all apart. You want to do that, Joe? Take everything apart. I'm going to grab my tools, and then Stacy, why don't you come with me? Good morning, Julio.
Hola!
¿Qué pasa?
Nada, alergia, no me deja.
¿Alergia?
Otra vez.
¿Quieres pastillas?
Un ratito que tengas tiempo, ¿quieres?
Sí.
Un ratito, sí. Gracias.
Bueno.
Gracias.
Sí. Maybe I'm gonna go grab some pills for Julio. You wanna hang out with them
Okay.
for a minute, and I'll play with that.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Dad, can you get me some?
So Jim said you just described the difference between a doweled block and a floating. Better projection, booming sound. Imagine a drum with a loose head. Hmm.
So that's when he was saying
Apparently-
the difference between this
yeah.
and the wing.
Yeah, I first noticed it when customers would come in. It was sitting next to the bush and lane. So I'd play this one, and then I'd play that one, and it was such a huge difference.
Yeah.
Like, and granted, bush and lane is taller a little bit by a few inches, but
And it has new strings.
yes. So it was kind of unfair that way, but still, such a huge difference if people would walk by this piano, even though they were drawn to it first because it's so pretty cosmetically, like the wood color and just just very pretty. And it felt good, but it was just the bass just wasn't projecting like you would think for a piano this size. So what next? Don't we have to put it on its back? No,
No.
you can test downbearing upright. How do you do that?
Take this piece off.
Yeah.
You can get to the bridge down here.
Got it. How exactly do you test it though? Because when we were doing the Steinway, it was before it was restrung and
Yeah, so
we used
that's
strings. So how do you do it when it's already?
what Brigham was looking for. There's a little, it's like a gauge where it's flat, and you put the middle on top of the bridge and see if there's movement back and forth.
Oh, okay. Because there should be.
Yeah, there should
Yeah,
be.
there should be.
If it doesn't move at all, that means there's no downbearing.
Got it. Okay.
Need some Jeopardy music.
We're just kind of sitting here right now, aren't we? Wish I could pause it because I'm actually really hungry. I'm just like, I want to go get like some food real quick, just like a drink or something. Okay. There's not much else to show right now. Mhm. With this one, is this one not finished yet? He's still working on stuff? Oh, he's doing the key
Looks like he's
tops.
doing the keys.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, this is another one that just came out of the shop recently, but we're doing new key tops on it last minute, so it's really pretty too. How's your piano looking, Joe?
A little bit better.
straps are pulling before lid off happens. Some of them it makes too much resistance.
The brown straps are doing what?
Where it starts to pull before the jack lets off.
So here's our new downbearing gauge.
I found this.
Oh, that'd probably work too.
Good morning, Peter. Yeah, go for it.
Careful with it. It's dead just in the upper area.
Mainly the base.
So we have some downbearing there. A lot of bearing there.
Gonna have to check the base bridge.
I'm gonna sneak underneath you. Don't mind me.
There as well. So the base bridge,
Doesn't look very well connected to the soundboard.
so the base, you don't necessarily want any downbearing.
Oh,
You don't want negative.
so
But if you have zero bearing, that's
okay,
that's actually,
that's good.
if you have a slight amount of bearing or zero, it's kind of what you want.
I didn't even know that.
Is it like separating right there?
That might be the problem.
And there is actually bearing. Close to zero, which is what you want. You want zero or close to zero. And that's at zero. Yeah, definite.
Yeah, it's there.
Well,
Should look at the back.
Yeah, we could pull it out.
another thing we can do, Scott, we found a string that we can check the crown of the soundboard. Yeah, let's pull it out. Okay, Jojo, you stand up. Joe and I are gonna pull this out.
Oops. Face the other way. Phone starting.
Look out, Jojo.
fix it in the distant past.
What do you see? It tells you that.
These screws. Unless that's part of the design, but I usually don't see that.
That might be the bridge.
Oh,
I think it is. Yeah, that's the base bridge.
yeah,
And
you're right.
then,
Wonder about having bridges on the ribs.
someone want to put your finger on the string
This one.
in the center, right in the center, and see if it. Yeah. Yeah, look at that. Okay, and then release it. So there's a crown. Everybody see that? Did you see it, Jake?
So
It's a mystery.
looking right here.
Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
lifted right there.
Mm-hmm.
What else could it be?
Anti-crown on this side.
What's that?
It's like anti-crown on this side of the piano.
Anti-crown?
Concave.
Yeah, concave. That's right.
Couldn't think of the word.
That's right. Okay, so there's definitely a crown.
What else? Okay, so if it's not that, what is it?
And there's cracks that follow along the ridges.
And this crack seems like a problem because it is separating from the rib a little bit. I don't know how much that would account for the weak tone. I'm not sure. I'm guessing somewhat, but. Do just one string again. You grab the crowbar, Scott? And maybe a couple pieces of felt.
Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
on the bridge area on this side, there's like some cracks going underneath. It almost looks like it wants to separate a little bit. The bridge itself isn't fully contacting.
It's not fully contacting what?
Those screws loose? Like, it's possible the bridge may not be all of the surface area of the bottom of the bridge where it is glued to the soundboard. Could be like part of it is
Not connecting.
yeah, there's like some minor cracks, but they follow like a pattern along the bridge. Make it look like it is not fully connected in some parts. Kind of like these ribs on this bed.
Here, will you put the action back in And let's try playing a little bit, and then messing with the crown by bearing on it with the crowbar. What's that?
Too overbearing.
Try not to. Here's the action.
This
Low
thing's
bar
more
on this
efficient.
side also looks like higher than normal.
You think it needs more finishing? Where?
I mean, it looks like
Oh, yeah.
it's less than you usually see, but I could be tripping.
Yeah, it's kind of dirty back here, huh?
That's not where the people look.
So I just kind of picked a random spot on the soundboard. Really just because it's kind of in the middle.
Just screwing it in. Trying to. Did you hand me that screwdriver? Thank you.
Guess what, everybody? Brigham is 11 today.
Happy birthday! Wow, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
11.
It's also a lucky number.
That's a lucky number.
Yeah, it is a lucky number.
Triple digits. I'm triple digits. Actually, no, you're only two. I know about you.
Triple digits?
Oh, but you're only two because 1 plus 1 equals 2. Actually, no, 0 because 1 minus 1 equals 0. Actually, 1 because 1 times 1 equals 1.
This is kind of cool. I mean, why did they do this? Is that strictly cosmetic?
I think so.
It does look nice.
It does look nice.
What is it?
Just the way they've kind of shaped the back posts.
The underside of the Fazio, they sent this in.
Does it? Interesting. Just because they could. Yeah.
These hammers are out of
That's interesting.
doesn't want to screw on.
Cool thing that no one but the technician ever sees.
Yeah, yeah. Can't tell where to put the camera right now.
You about ready, Joe?
Yeah, I was just switching one of the screws with a different one because it seems stripped. But now it's good, maybe.
You get down, Joshie.
Alright.
Okay, go ahead and play.
I'm gonna put you in the bed. yeah,
There
yeah.
we go.
I'm gonna punch your maybe.
That needs regulation.
I'm punching you. I'm gonna punch you. You're trying to punch me. I'm gonna punch you. Oh, nice stuff. I'm punching both.
Okay, hey Joe, just play a chord, and just keep playing that chord over and over. Just keep going, keep going.
Yes, the precise yard. Huh? That's the precise yard. Yes, the same to you. Stop talking. How do you already have that juice?
It's the Joe song.
Anybody hearing any difference?
I think so.
I think so.
I think so too,
It
but
kind of goes, well.
How do you have this?
Do it again.
How do you
yeah, you heard something.
Well,
Yeah.
how did you do
Do it again.
So here's without voicing or voicing it.
Just need to fill your head.
Now voicing.
There's a definite
Hey
difference.
boys, I need you to be quiet. Okay.
For any pianist out there who must voice your pinky of your right hand slightly louder.
It does make it sound better.
Chord.
Yeah, it makes a big difference actually. It sounds better when you do that.
His character. So what are you just tightening them? The screws?
So keep doing the exact same thing. Try to just
it
do
the
quarter
same.
notes, and just play it, whatever you do. Just play it the same, because we want to eliminate all other variables. Just do it exactly the same quarter notes.
That's a ridiculous thing.
Nice. Did that make a difference?
Couldn't tell on that one. Maybe we're just hearing Joe's voicing.
Sounds better.
Yeah, that one did. That one did.
Okay, boys, go up to my office, okay? Go up to my office.
That did not sound good. It was better, huh? Yeah, that one was better. Yeah.
Okay, Joe. Well, what do you think?
The biggest difference
It
was
sounds a lot
to right
different
to
when you're on
This
my
one?
To right.
This one?
Yeah,
Right here? Right? That's basically the center.
that's where I heard the biggest difference.
What's that?
That's where I heard the biggest
it's a lot more projection than when you're down right here significantly, like how you'd be sitting.
Sorry, what are you saying?
So standing up,
is changing.
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
like
okay.
significantly.
So that, yeah.
How
I
about,
didn't really notice any difference.
you didn't, oh, okay.
Something significant. There's probably more.
So right here, you
there.
think?
That's where I was hearing it, from here at least.
Why don't you try and do quarter note chords, and I'll mess with this and see if you hear anything.
I don't know if I can do quarter notes like Jim.
I wasn't counting at all. I was just playing. I don't.
I require exact precision.
What's the voicing on that?
E flat major.
Ready, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds better there.
Get your head down.
And there it's gone. What'd you think, Scott?
Yeah,
I can't tell when you're moving, so I'm just listening for the sound.
but you noticed
did
the
get
change,
better at
right?
one point.
Yeah, I heard it too.
Yeah.
I heard
If
it.
you just play right, it sounds fine.
Okay. All right, then.
So is that one?
It's right here that made an improvement,
Mhm.
giving it a little bit more bearing.
There's bad separation.
Yeah.
Hey Scott, why don't you talk about? So Scott just did a repair like this. So what I'm thinking is, Scott just did a soundboard repair. What on Monday?
Yeah.
I think. Why don't you talk about what you did? So I'm thinking we can repair the soundboard there. I don't know if how much tonal difference that'll make, because it seems like that. I've generally done those soundboard repairs in order to avoid buzzing. I don't know that I've necessarily been like, oh yeah, that makes the richness of the tone better. It's hard to tell. In the same way that this crowbar thing is showing us, it's more to avoid buzzing. But why don't you talk about that, Scott?
What about since the soundboard is kind of separating, pushing up, is that giving you a false reading of how much crowning it actually has?
By pushing it?
No, like when you use the string.
It might be different once it's glued.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I see what you're saying. So how'd you do that repair, Scott?
So that one was really nice because I could do the whole thing from the front side.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, you put a bunch of glue in this little gap between the soundboard and the rib, and then on the other one I put a screw in from the opposite side that went into the rib, and that just kind of clamped the whole thing together. It's a fairly simple repair.
And
but-
then you took
Took out
out
the
the
glue.
screw and.
Oh right, yeah. On that one I took out the screws and then put in dowels just to make it look a bit nicer.
Okay. What's on the other side? Directly the other side of this. Do we have access to that?
Action.
Yeah, you made me put it back in.
A bunch of strings. Can't see if the plate's there.
Hey Jake, will you shine your phone light through this crack? See if we have access to that.
It starts right there.
Through this one. Yeah.
There's the big crack.
Put your light down for a second so you can see his come through.
See any light? Or is it covered by the plate or anything?
So the plate starts right here. I can see the light coming off the side of it. I don't know if it's right where he is or not.
Yeah, I can see his light. Is that his light?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we probably have access.
So at least part of it.
Yeah.
I wonder if if we were to put glue in there, and then you know, we could set up our do our whole clamping system with the spreader
Yeah.
clamps, and at least get in there. And even if you know, I wonder if there were glue, because it's separating. It looks like it's separating on 1, 2, 3. Probably not that one. 4. This one. 5 ribs. So I wonder if we had glue on all 5 of those ribs. I wonder if one clamp right in the middle, pushing it, would be enough to glue it. I don't know.
Be nice to have more.
Yeah, depends on what we have access to.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jake.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the battery's any better.
Really?
It had about 8 volts
It's
to
still
start
bring
with,
my-
so it's charging on your alternator.
Okay.
But
But who knows?
yeah, so I'm leaving you. So I have a little mobile jump starter thing. It's a battery. You just plug in the terminal connectors. So if you get stranded, you don't need someone else.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Hi, Facebook. Sorry, that was not a very
Hey, that was helpful.
very helpful. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. What time is it?
It's almost 20 till about.
20 till.
You should probably get that.
Are you bored?
No, you said that you have it too.
I don't have one until 9. Okay. Then let's make a bolt and put it in there. Let's see what that does. So, don't do that. So let's start with Jake, will you go grab calipers? So we'll measure the depth of what we can fit in there, and then cut a bolt to size, and then crank it out. I think that'll.
How did we do it before? Was it a nut on the other side?
On the Steinway? Or another piano?
Steinway upright.
Yeah, yeah,
Wasn't it just a bolt
yeah.
with a nut?
Mm-hmm.
And the nut was so it barely went in with the nut flush
Yep.
with the top of
That's
the
what I thought.
bolt, and then by cranking it out, it essentially the nut is only like half on the threads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
I can't imagine that the difference that we made with the crowbar is really
It wasn't a huge.
It's-
We were having to really listen for it.
like it's.
But
Is that a sword?
That was a.
It's a lid prop.
It's my cane.
Oh, it's a cane.
Could work as a cane.
Well, you can't have it because you're gonna be crazy with it.
That's one
Thank
of the
you.
collector's pianos.
Okay. So this is the section that we're in. So we want. So a bolt that is that dimension will just barely fit. So let's go make that. So about 585 thousandths. Let's go do that.
alright. Your battery's low on your camera. So you're like at 15%.
Okay.
So we're good for a little longer.
Make sure it goes back.
It is?
Yeah.
How? You go to.
It's the part that holds up the lid.
What can? Oh.
It's one of the new ones that we got from the guy in Salt Lake.
They were going to piano.
It's either the Air Warrens or the Brigham Larson.
Can we get the grinder out? And
Oh,
Jake, will
sorry.
you want to do that extension cord?
Granda's right there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you for your cane.
It's a cane.
The cane.
You're at 10%.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm really losing battery fast.
Everything, especially your battery.
Even your car battery.
Yeah,
Where's
we're
Jake?
having all sorts of battery problems this morning, huh?
I need more power.
Hey, Brigham,
What?
I want you to here, find a 9/16.
9/16 what? In here?
Yep.
Settings.
Is there an extension cord?
Are you gonna use that?
Yeah.
Why? It's dangerous. I need a mud.
How we doing on battery?
We're getting low.
How low are you?
Faster, Brigham.
Faster.
Okay, Brigham, did you find a...
No, there were none in the bag.
What's that?
There were none in the bag. I found a half.
I found 916.
Did you?
Yeah, it's right here.
That's what I need.
Yeah, it's right here.
Okay, there we have a... So that's... 570 thousandths, and the gap was 580 thousandths. So we're gonna go stick it in there and let's go. Let's run since we don't have much battery. Why?
Because the cable bar screws, a lot of them were loose.
You're evil.
And I crimped them down.
Don't be crazy.
And I think it made a little bit of
Dutch.
maybe.
Get off. Stop. You're scaring me.
Okay, Joe. What?
So do you get the chords?
Yeah.
I only do one.
Josh. simple.
Playing it slightly different each time.
Yeah.
There is a moment where it sounds better.
Yeah.
I'm not using a bit. What are you using?
I think it sounds a little more resonating.
More resonant.
What did you do?
Just put a bolt in there. It's so hard to tell,
I know, it's cool.
you know. It's so subjective. This bolt right here.
I'm slamming my
Okay.
I mean,
So then we'll do this repair. Of course, it
Yes.
needs to be tuned as well. But
Yes.
okay,
and maybe
we'll
part of
end,
that
we'll
was
end
the
our
On a high note.
Facebook Live. So we're not doing it.